The small town of Willow Creek hadn't seen a crowd this large in years. Dust swirled beneath heavy boots, laughter clanged off food trucks, and children danced to fiddles under the spring sun. At the heart of it all was the annual Heritage Charity Auction, a long-standing tradition meant to raise money for the local orphanage and food pantry. But this year, something felt different. The stakes were higher. The stories were heavier. Among the crowd, a tall, weathered man stood apart. His name was Samuel Granger, a widower of 5 years, and ever since his wife, Ellen, passed from cancer, he had lived in a state of quiet withdrawal. His farm on the edge of town ran on routine, not joy. The laughter had left with her. His days were filled with silence, save for the occasional clink of a coffee mug or the hum of an old radio playing songs from a time he wished he could revisit. He wasn't there to participate. Not really. Samuel had come out of respect. Ellen had always volunteered at the auction. She would have wanted him to support the cause. But something tugged at him that day, something he couldn't name. A strange urgency hummed in his chest as he leaned against the wooden rail near the stage. That's when he saw her. 19-year-old Emily Carter stepped onto the platform, her face pale but composed, eyes locked forward like a soldier braving battle. The auctioneer announced her name and explained she had volunteered to be auctioned for a day of service, babysitting, yard work, organizing events. It was symbolic, all for charity, but her presence drew a murmur through the crowd. What most people didn't know, what Samuel didn't know, was that Emily wasn't just volunteering. She was desperate. She had aged out of the foster care system 2 months ago. No family. No support. She was couch surfing, cleaning diners for tips, and hoping that someone, anyone, might offer her a real opportunity. When the local coordinator asked for volunteers for the auction, she said yes. Not because she wanted to be on stage, but because she needed someone to notice her. As the bidding began, it started slow. $50, someone called. $75. $100. But the energy was fading. Most bidders were already focused on the next item, a signed football jersey or a hand-carved canoe paddle. Emily's eyes flickered, just for a moment, revealing the sinking realization that she might walk away with nothing. Nothing, again. Then, a deep voice cut through the hum. $1,000. Gasps spread like ripples on a pond. Heads turned. Emily's eyes locked with Samuel's. He didn't know what compelled him to speak. He hadn't planned it. But something in her, her stillness, her quiet dignity, reminded him of Ellen. No further bids, the auctioneer called, stunned. Samuel raised a single hand, confirming. 1 day of service, he said. That's all. The gavel dropped. Sold. The girl nodded, expression unreadable. Samuel, equally unsure of what he had just done, tipped his hat and turned to leave. The next morning, Emily showed up at his farm gate, backpack slung over her shoulder. She didn't speak much. Neither did he. He handed her a list, mostly trivial chores: dust the bookshelves, organize old photo albums, water the garden. Tasks he could easily have done himself but hadn't touched in years. Hours passed in silence until she entered the living room carrying a faded album. "These yours?" she asked. Samuel looked up from his chair, surprised. They were hers. My wife's. Emily flipped a page, revealing photographs of a young couple laughing under a tree, Ellen holding a tiny lamb in her arms. She had a bright face, Emily said gently. She had a bright soul, Samuel replied, his voice catching. Something shifted between them then. The air softened. The walls, too. Over the next few days, Emily returned. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. The house began to hum again. She baked a pie with an old recipe she found in Ellen's notes. She mended torn curtains. She painted the porch swing that had grayed from neglect. Samuel began leaving the door unlocked. One evening, they sat on that freshly painted swing, watching the sun dip behind the hills. "I don't think anyone's ever bid on me like that," Emily said quietly, her voice thin. "Not just money. I mean, believed in me." Samuel swallowed hard. "I wasn't bidding for a service. I just saw someone trying not to disappear." Tears welled in her eyes. "That's how it feels most days." He nodded. "I know. I've felt that too." From then on, their connection deepened, not as father and daughter, not yet, but as two souls quietly stitching each other back together. He offered her the guest room, just for a week, he said. She accepted, cautiously, grateful but uncertain. That week turned into 2, then a month. One rainy afternoon, Samuel came in from the barn to find Emily standing over the stove, humming a tune Ellen used to love. Something cracked open inside him, and he excused himself, slipping into the bedroom. There, he wept, not out of sadness, but because the silence had finally lifted. He made a decision that night. At breakfast, he placed an envelope on the table. Inside were documents, papers declaring guardianship, and a note in his uneven handwriting. "I know you're 19. I know you're grown. But this house could use a daughter, and my heart could use a reason to feel alive again. If you'll have me, as your family, I'd be honored." Emily read it once, then again. Her hands shook. "I've never had a home," she whispered. "But this feels like one." She signed the papers. Word of Samuel's act spread quietly through Willow Creek. Most assumed he had simply wanted to help a lost girl. But those who knew him, those who had seen the grief in his eyes for years, understood the truth: he hadn't just saved Emily. She had saved him. That summer, Samuel reopened the farmstand Ellen once ran. Emily helped him design it anew, with hand-painted signs, local crafts, and a community garden plot in Ellen's name. Children visited to pet goats and pick sunflowers. Elderly neighbors brought stories and cookies. The swing was always occupied. The laughter had returned. One evening, as twilight brushed the sky, Emily sat beside Samuel on that same porch swing. "Do you ever think about that auction?" she asked. He chuckled softly. "Every day. It was the best decision I never meant to make." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I thought I was being sold that day, but really, I was being found." They sat in silence, wrapped in the gentle hum of crickets and wind chimes, two lives rewritten by a single moment of unexpected kindness. Because sometimes, the people we rescue are the very ones who end up saving us. And in the quiet town of Willow Creek, a widower and a once-forgotten girl found something neither of them expected: family. Not by blood, but by choice. And that made all the difference.